All right, so now let's continue. We have learned that I can print what I call a literal statement. This is a literal because it is surrounded by double quotes, and if you'll notice, it's green because it is a literal. Another thing that I'll have you notice is the words public class, static void. These are all, in my IDE, they're purple because they're reserved words. If you'll notice, anything that comes after the dual forward slashes is orange. That's because they are comments. And this visual coloring of a program allows me to determine if my program is running, what might be going wrong. So let's print out another literal, or let's print something else out. So I'm going to use system.out.print. And then any executable line of code is going to be followed by a semicolon, and anything I put inside of here, inside of the parentheses, is going to be printed. So how about if I say, Dr. King said, and then I'm going to add another one. System.out.print. Once again, I need my parentheses and my semicolon for my executable line of code. And we're going to say, I have a dream. All right, so now I have 3 print statements, each of them on a different line. I'm going to compile it to make sure that I haven't spelled anything wrong or that I'm not missing anything. Once my program compiles correctly and I see the magic words, operation complete, with no errors, then I'm going to run it. And we're going to see what happens when I do that. And it says, hello world, Dr. King said I have a dream. It's all on the same line, and you say to yourself, no, I printed them on 3 separate lines. And Java is a lot like HTML, and that Java does not care that I have pressed enter and put each one of these on a different line. It doesn't care. If I want to force a new line, I have to do it manually. So the way that I can do that is instead of doing a print, I can say system.out.println, lowercase ln. And the print statement will print anything it sees in between its opening and closing parentheses. The print line prints anything it finds in between its opening and closing parentheses, and then forces a new line or a carriage return. So let me compile it to implement my changes. And then we're going to run it, and we'll see if we can get some of these printed on a different line. Here we go. Hello world, Dr. King said is on the same line because this is a print statement. I'm going to leave that there just so we can see what it does. The next one, Dr. King said, it's going to print Dr. King said and then force a new line. So I have a dream is now on a new line. I use print line after that, which we can't really tell that it put it on a new line, but we can see it. All right, so we learned that we can print variables. Let's see if we can print some, we learned we can print literals, string literals, so let's print some variables. In order to print some variables, I should probably declare some variables. Do you mind if I shorten it down to vars since my typing is an adventure? All right, so we're going to declare some variables. If I want to have a single line comment, I have dual quotes. Anything I put after the 2 forward slashes, not dual quotes, anything I put after forward slashes is a comment. So I can have some code, and then following that, anything that follows the 2 forward slashes is a comment. If I want to have a multiple line comment so that I don't have to comment 5 or 6 or 7 lines of code, what I can do is a forward slash with a asterisk. And anything up to through the closing tag for that comment, which is the reverse. Asterisk, forward slash. Anything inside of here is going to be automatically set as a comment. All right, so declare a variable, I need 3 things. Oops. The 3 things that I need to declare a variable. The first thing I need to know is the type of data that we'll be holding. I'm going to call this the data type. The second thing that I have to know in order to declare a variable is the name, following the appropriate naming conventions. And the third thing that I need to know is its initial value. I need to give it an initial value. Notice how I didn't have to have the forward slashes here, and these automatically become part of a comment. So I'm going to delete some of this so I can pull this back. So let's see, those three things in that order. So let's create some variables. So I'm going to create a whole number, a variable that will contain a whole number. Let me go back and look at my data types again. All right, here's a list of my data type. I'm going to create a variable that will contain a whole number. And for our general default use, we will use int. Java is case sensitive, so I need a lowercase int. So let's come down here and let's create a whole number variable. So I'm going to, the first thing that I need is a data type. The second thing that I need is the name of the variable. And the third thing that I need is to set it to a default value. Because he is a whole number, I'm going to set him to a whole number default value. Then if I come back to my presentation, I'm going to see that another data type is going to be a floating point. There are two options available to me if I want a variable that will contain a floating point, which means a decimal, is a float and a double. And we're just going to use the larger of the two double. Again, Java is case sensitive, so I am going to create a double variable. We would call this wage. I'm going to initialize it to a floating point or a decimal number. And then let's create another variable. We'll call this a string because I want to contain alphanumeric numbers, letters, symbols. String is capitalized. The S in string is capitalized, and I'm going to default it to dual quotes. There does not have to be a space between the two quote symbols, but there needs to be the dual quotes. And then let's create a char variable. Let me come back to my data types. If you'll notice, another type of a data type is called a character, and it is lowercase char. I can contain one symbol, alpha, a letter, a number, or a symbol, but just one. All right, so let's come back to our Java, and we're going to create one. We'll call this one middle initial, and I'm going to initialize it to a single quote with a space and another single quote. Strings are initialized, or let me say strings are surrounded by double quotes. Notice up here when I was printing out Dr. King said I have a dream, I surrounded them by double quotes because it's a string. But if I'm dealing with a char variable, it is single quotes, and it's initialized to a space because I cannot set a character to null or nothing. There must be something in there, and it can be a space. All right, so the way that I remember this is char variables contain one and only one value, therefore I'm going to use one quote. String variables contain one or many, and so I'm going to use the two quotes in order to be able to set those values. All right, so now that I have declared some variables, let's set the variables to some values. So when I'm declaring it, I have to tell it the data type that I'm going to be using. But for the rest of the time that I use it, I don't have to indicate the name or the type of data that it will hold. So let's set age to 12, and we'll set wage to some floating point value like 12.5. Do you want to make $12.50 an hour? Or do you want to make $125? Oh, we'll do that. We'll make it $112.50. Oh, that's a nice wage to make per hour. And then let's come down here and let's set name equal to something. Remember, I have to surround it by dual quotes, and we'll set it equal to Dr. King. Each one of these is an executable line of code, so I have to follow it with a semicolon. So then let's set middle initial using camel case. I'm going to set it equal to Dr. Martin Luther King. So I'll set that to an L. So now we have set some variables. The next thing that we want to do is we want to print the variables. And I do that using my system.out.print. I'm going to use print line this time because I want to force each one of them to their own line. And then I just put the name of the variable inside of here, such as age. Then I'm going to do it again. Oops. I should spell that right. I'm going to put something in here like wage. I just put the name of the variable in there. I do need to have a space between those. So now when I compile it and I run it, let's see what happens. Compile it to implement my changes, and then I'm going to run it to see what happens. So what it's telling me, I cannot find the symbol middle initial. I probably spelled this one, I-N-I-T-I-A-L, different, though I do. I have 3 D's in this one, and I don't want to initialize it with 3 D's. Very good. So it couldn't find the symbol middle. Let me see if and the 2 of them must be spelled the same. Let's see if it picks up my error now, or if it corrects my error now. Oh, much better. Life is much better. So now when I run it, I should print out age and wage on the screen. So now I learned that I can print out variables, not just literals, but I can also print out variables. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy this onto my clipboard so that I don't have to keep typing it in. So I'd like to have this statement, system.out.println, on my clipboard. So I'm just going to copy it. So now every time I press paste, it will just paste this onto my keyboard or onto my screen. All right, so some of the other things that we can print out are anything that it finds inside of these parentheses it will print, such as math statements, 3 plus 2 times 5. Whatever I put inside of there, it will print. And if you know your order of operation, it's going to do the multiplication first. 2 times 5 is 10 plus 3. The answer should be 13. Based upon the order of operation, there it is right there. So I can just do math calculations inside of there. The way the system.out.print and system.out.println work is it just prints whatever it finds inside of there. So sometimes I want to print things such as, what if I wanted to actually print a quote mark? Because when Dr. King says I have a dream, that is actually a quote. So I would like it to be inside of quotes. How do I get it to print a quote? So we're going to talk about escape sequences. Escape sequences allow me to print things. Once again, I'm going to paste that onto my clipboard. I'm going to allow me to print things that would normally mean something to the compiler. So say, for instance, I am printing a quote mark. If I want to print a quote mark, you'll notice my program thinks that this first quote mark is actually closing my string literal. So I'm going to use a backslash in front of the character that I want to print, which is a quote mark, so I can get it to print that. So I'm going to compile it to implement my changes. Then I'm going to run it, and I should say I'm printing a quote mark. So I use this backslash here in front of the character that I want to print. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to print another one of the escape sequences is a backslash itself. What if I actually wanted to have a backslash in there? I could say I am printing a backslash. What if I actually wanted to print a backslash? Well, I use the backslash as the escape sequence, and the character that follows it will print. So I'll compile it to implement my changes and run it. And now I should have a backslash. There it is right there. There's a couple of more escape sequences that we want to talk about. And as I mentioned, there are several different ways that I can force the program for a new line. If I come back up here and I say system.out.println, this ln forces a new line character. Another way that I can force a new line is by actually using an empty system.out.println. So if you'll notice now, when I compile it and run this, it is now going to force hello world onto another line, as Dr. King said. Because previous to this, these 2 lines have always been on the same line. So if I compile it and run it now, a second way I can force a new line is just using an empty system.out.println. And if you'll notice when it prints it now, Hello World and Dr. King Said are now on different lines. There is a third way that I can force a new line. Inside of a text field, I can force a new line here. Let's say, for instance, I wanted to force a new line character here. We're going to use our backslash with the letter N, stands for new line. Wherever it finds the backslash N, it will force a new line character. So if I compile it and I run it, you're going to notice that I can force a new line here. So wherever I put that backslash in, it's going to force a new line. And there's one more that we can do, another escape sequence. I can force a tab key. So what if I wanted to force a tab key between the words? I can force a tab key, and the letter would be T, a lowercase t. So I can force a tab using the escape sequence backslash T. There it is. I can force a tab key. So these are just some of the escape sequences that we can use in order to print characters that would not normally be printable to us. All right, so now it's your turn. What I'd like you to do is I would like you to create a program that will print out the rules to rock, paper, scissors. And I would like you to display the rules as you see them on this screen right here. You're going to place each rule on a separate line. You're going to put a blank line between the rules, and you are going to tab in these last three rules. So I'm going to have you create a program that prints the rules for rock, paper, scissors. All right, the next thing that we're going to be doing, moving on, is we are going to do some more print statements. So we're going to create a new file. We're going to call this one Friendly Hello. So following the standard format of a Java program, we need the public class. We'll call this one Friendly Hello. With his opening and his closing braces, I'm going to label this as my class. I'm going to come inside of here and tab in. And inside of these parentheses, we need a capital S with square braces and the word args. And then I need the main container's opening and closing brace. All right. Oop, we got to spell this correct. I'm going to press these down to get away from them a little bit. And then we're going to come in here and we're going to write a program. And what this is going to do is display a personalized greeting. So in order to be able to do that, we're going to write some pseudocode to quickly explain or quickly map out a plan of what we want to do. So we want to declare and initialize some variables. After that, we are going to set the variables to some values. And then we are going to display the greeting. So those simple plan. This is what I'm going to do. Let's come back and let's add a little bit more detail about what I wanted to say. I would like it to say something like hello space James Dean. Hello, first name and last name. So based upon what you see here, what kind of variables do you think I'm going to need? Adding a little bit more detail, I'm probably going to need first name, and then I'm probably also going to need last name in order to write this program. All right, so this is pseudocode, and it took me all of about 30 seconds to map out some kind of a plan for my program. So I'm expecting you to write pseudocode in all of your programs. I'm expecting you to have some sort of a plan. So let's come back here and add some detail now. I need a first name and a last name variable. So the data type is going to be a string. I'm going to call it first name using the correct naming convention. And I'm going to give it an initial value. It is a string, so I'm going to initialize it to dual quotes. The last name will do the same thing for. I'm going to initialize it to closed quotes or empty quotes with a semicolon. And then we're going to set the variables to something. So let's set first name to James. Because it is a string, it has to be surrounded by quotes. And then we'll set last name to Dean, followed by a semicolon. All right, so let me press that down. If I want to print this greeting, hello, James Dean, we know how to get text inside of a print statement, and we know how to get a variable inside of a print statement. But what I really need is there to be some kind of text, and then I also need there to be some kind of variables inside of a single print statement. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a print statement, and I am going to copy this, and we're going to build a print statement, and let me show you how we're going to do that. So I'm going to paste this print statement inside of here, and then I'm going to increase this font size so that we can have an example of what this will look like. And from here, I am going to build a print statement. So when I look at this, what is this right here? I'm pretty sure that this is a variable called first name. Do you mind if I shorten it while I'm writing? All right, what is this right here? Pretty sure that that is also a variable which we called last name. And then what is this right here? Try it again. What is this right here? Including that space. This is text, right? And I would also ask you, well, we'll come back to that in just a second. So how am I going to get it to print text, and then a variable, and then another variable? How do I get it to do that? And we're going to use what I call the concatenation operator, which is a plus sign. The plus sign is a binary operator, which if it finds two numbers on either side of it, will add them together. But if it finds a string value along with another string value or a number or something else like that, it actually concatenates or appends the values together. And so I'm going to use the plus sign to concatenate this text right here to this variable and to the second variable. So let's go back to our JGraphs program. We are going to begin to build our print statement. So we're going to say system.out.println. I'm going to use a print line. And then inside of here, and I need my trailing semicolon, inside of here I'm pretty sure that I had some kind of text. And the text said hello space. Looking at what I'm trying to print out, I have the word hello space. And then after that text field, I'm going to use my concatenation operator to concatenate the first variable, which is first name. And then I need it to concatenate the second variable, which is last name. So let's compile it and see what happens. Oh, I have to give it a new file name. I'm going to allow JGraphs to call it friendly hello. I'm just going to tell it where I want to put it. All right, so now it should compile it, now that it's saved for the first time. And I spelled system. Once again, I'm going to blame all of my spelling errors on my broken finger. Even if it's typed with my left hand, I'm still going to blame it on my broken finger. All right, so that's good. Now let me run it, and let's see what it prints. It says, hello, James Dean. If you'll notice, it concatenated the hello space with the first name and the last name, but I actually need a space between the words James and Dean. So if I come back to here, I can see that there is a space between James and Dean, which means that I need to concatenate. If I want to force a value or a text between the James and Dean, I need to force a space. And I'm going to do that once again. I'm going to force that space by concatenating first name with that variable with the space and the last name. So let's come back in here into JGraphs. If I want a space between James and Dean, I have to force a space between James and Dean. So I'm going to add a text field between the first name and the last name that will then force that space. Remember, the one mistake, a common mistake that we make when we're building print statements is that every single different data type has to have a concatenation or a plus sign between it. So I have a variable with a plus sign, a text field with a plus sign, a variable, a plus sign, another text field with a plus sign. So if I'm missing the concatenation operator or the plus sign between those change in data types, it will give me an error. So let me compile it and run it, and now if you'll notice I have hello, space, James, space, Dean, space. All right, so let's do it one more time. What if I wanted it to say, hello, Mr. Dean, comma, James. And if I wanted to build this print statement, let me copy and paste it onto here. All right, so once again, we're going to identify our variables first. I'm pretty sure that this is a variable. I'm pretty sure that this is a variable. This would be last name. This is first name. And if I identify all this up to and including that space is text. And then I see that the space, the comma, and the space here. And this is also text. So how do I get it to display text with last name and text with first name? Well, I'm going to use the concatenation operator between each one of those. All right, so let's come back in here and let's build this print statement. All right, so I'm pretty sure the first thing that I have is a text field, and inside of that text field is going to be hello space, Mr. dot, dot. And then I need the space following that Mr. And then I'm going to try to concatenate that with Dean, which is last name, and I'm going to concatenate that with another text field. And the text field is comma, space. So inside the text field, I'm going to put the comma and the space, and I'm going to concatenate that with my last variable, which is first name. And it is an executable line of code, so it needs a semicolon on the end. I'm going to compile it, see if I've spelled everything right, or if I've misspelled something, or if I'm missing something. Once I get the operation complete with no errors, I'm going to run it. Let's see if we can get the second print statement. And there it is. Hello, Mr. dot space James, Dean, comma, James. So I got the last name and the first name. So now we know how to build print statements using variables and text fields. And I can concatenate as many of those that I need together. All right, we're going to do it one last time. So we're going to start a new program. We're going to call this one Bonus Calculator. I need my opening and my closing brace. And then inside of here, we are going to put our main container. And then we need the main opening and closing brace. Then I'm going to push the two of them down just a little bit to give myself a little bit of room. And we are going to write a program that will calculate bonuses. So let's write a little bit of pseudocode inside of here. All right, so if I were to write pseudocode, we need to declare and init some vars. Then what we need to do is we need to set the salary. Finally, we calculate the bonus. And then finally, we need to display the results. All right. So if I come back and I add a little bit of detail so I know what I want to do, one of the details I would add is what do I want the print statement to say. Maybe I want it to say something like your bonus for the year is, let's say, $200. Okay, this is a good statement. All right, so based upon that, I'm probably going to need to know the formula to calculate the bonus. Let's say that a bonus is going to be salary multiplied by 20%. They're going to get a 20% bonus, or a 2%. We'll give them a 2% bonus. Oh, 20. We're going to be generous and give them a 20% bonus. All right, so based on what you see here, what variables do you think that we're probably going to need? Well, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to need some kind of a salary. And I'm also pretty sure that I'm going to need some kind of a bonus, because if I need to display it at the end of my program here, let me drag this down. If I need to display it at the end in a print statement, I'm probably going to need that variable. All right, so we have our pseudocode. Now let's come back and start filling in things. I'm pretty sure a salary is going to be some kind of a floating point value, so we'll make it a double. We'll call it salary, and we'll initialize it to a floating point value with a semicolon. All right, my bonus, we're going to make the bonus a double as well. We're going to initialize it to some kind of a floating point value with a semicolon on the end of it. We're going to come in here and set the salary amount. So I might say that salary is equal to, I'm going to initialize the salary to $10,000 because one of the things that I want to be able to do is I want to be able to test my math to make sure that my math is working. And so I'm pretty sure that I can find out what 20%, or I can calculate on the fly in my mind what 20% of $10,000 is. So let's calculate the bonus. I'm pretty sure I wanted to store it in a variable called bonus. And then we said that salary was going to, or the bonus is equal to salary multiplied by 20%. And 20% is going to equal 0.20. That would be 20%. And then to display the results, we need to build our print statement. We'll do a print line, and inside of these parentheses, we are going to build a print statement. Pretty sure I'm going to start with a text field, and the text field is going to say your bonus for the year is up to and including that $sign. I'm going to copy that text and just paste it inside of here, since that's what I wanted to say anyway. And then I'm going to concatenate that with my bonus field. And then we're going to save it, see if I've made any mistakes, see if I've deleted any of my trailing. Oh, we got to save the file now for the first time. Let's come back in here and see. Oh, that's the reason why I didn't want to give it a name, because I had spelled the word public wrong. So let me try it again. Let me compile it, and let's see. Oh, there we go, bonus calculator. Now it's given it a name. I'm going to allow it to call it whatever it would like. I'm just going to put it wherever I want it. When I save it, it'll compile it. And once it compiles, then I can run my program. There it is. I have no mistakes or no errors. I haven't spelled anything wrong. Now when I run it, it says your bonus for the year is $2,000. Because 20% of 10,000 is 2,000. If I am not quite sure of my math, the idea is I'm going to start with a value that I can calculate on the fly just to make sure that my math is running. Because just because my program runs doesn't mean it's giving the right answer. I'm pretty sure that 20% of $1,000 is 200. Once I have come in here and I've determined with a reasonable surety that my math is working properly, then I can come in here and I can change this to some random value that I may or may not know the answer to. But the first time or the first few times, I need to do something that will make sure that my math is working correctly. You can break out your calculator, or you can enter values that you can calculate on the fly. There we go. $25,000 bonus on $125,000 a year salary. That is absolutely beautiful. So I have a good output. What if I wanted it to be a little bit better? I could say something like, because one of the things that we're going to notice about our user interface is that if I have to, the user may not remember what the salary was. I don't even think they knew what the salary was to begin with. So a better print statement would remind them of the original values so that they don't have to guess, they don't have to remember. I will just display it for them. So if I said something like your $100,000 salary plus the 20% bonus, or plus the bonus, is, and once again I'll just make up a number, $2,000. So now they don't have to try to remember what their salary is. It will be right there in the print statement. This is a much better print statement than the original one because it tells them what their original salary was. So let's see if we can build this print statement. I'm going to use a print line with a trailing semicolon. I'm pretty sure that I'm starting with a text field, your space $sign. I'm going to copy and paste that in there if you don't mind. And then I'm going to concatenate that with, I'm pretty sure that first variable is salary. So then I'm going to concatenate it with another text field, which is going to be space, salary plus the bonus is $sign. And then I'm going to copy that text into here, and then I'm going to concatenate it with the final field, which is bonus. And when I compile it to see if I have gotten anything wrong, spelled anything wrong, then we are going to run it and see if my second print statement is a little bit more descriptive. Your $125,000 salary plus the bonus is $25,000. So this is a much better print statement. So we have learned how to build print statements. All right, so it's going to be your turn. What I would like you to do for the last portion of this lecture is to write a program that's going to calculate the total distances of a race with 3 segments. The first segment is going to be 2.2 or 12.2 miles, the second is 10.6, and the last is 5.8. So, and then you're going to display the results to the user. Do not just display a number. I want you to display a user-friendly print statement at the very end. We will continue this, learning about how to make our programs more flexible in the next lecture.